The Forgotten Warship. The Denobulan extremists laughed as they mocked the ancient scrap heap of the ESS Retribution, not realizing that the decommissioned human warship was about to roar back to life and make them regret ever crossing blades with humanity. Captain Marcus Stevens ground his teeth, the Denobulan curator's smug disdain grating on his nerves as they walked through the Galactic Archives Museum. Even after 50 years, the scars of the human Denobulan War still ran deep. Heavy losses on both sides had eventually forced the peace treaty, but the bad blood lingered. Speaker waved a long-fingered hand at the towering hulk of metal as they approached the museum's newest exhibit. Behold, the once mighty human warship, now nothing more than a relic of a primitive bygone era, a deactivated, obsolete relic, a fitting symbol of your kind's fading power in the galaxy. The Denobulan museum staff snickered and jeered, poking fun at the crude and quaint human ship design. Marcus clenched his fists but held his tongue. Earth had sent the ESS Retribution as a gesture of peace and cooperation. He couldn't jeopardize that by putting some Denobulan smartasses in their place, no matter how much he wanted to. Suddenly, alarms blared, and blast doors slammed shut, sealing off the exhibit hall. Marcus wheeled around as a holoscreen flared to life, showing a scared Denobulan in battle armor. Karr, the notorious warlord. Karr's men dragged a group of bruised and bloodied Galactic Council members into view. Denobula demands humanity's immediate surrender, Karr roared. All human colonies will submit to our rule, or these council fools die. You have 1 hour to comply. The feed cut out. Speaker and the museum staff looked around in confusion and fear. Earth would never give in to such outrageous demands, but that meant the hostages were doomed. Marcus glanced at the ESS Retribution looming beside them, a desperate plan taking shape. If he could get aboard and reactivate the ship's systems, the Retribution's weapons could blast through the museum's walls and give him a shot at saving the council members. But the ship had been decommissioned and powered down. Even for an experienced engineer like Marcus, getting those systems back online would be almost impossible, and he'd be attempting it alone while Karr's men closed in. Marcus set his jaw. To hell with impossible odds. Humanity's future was on the line. The Denobulans thought the Retribution was just primitive space junk. Time to show them what human ingenuity and determination could do. He sprinted for the Retribution's open airlock as Speaker called after him in confusion. The clock was ticking. If Marcus failed, Earth would burn. This old warship was about to teach the Denobulans a lesson they'd never forget. Marcus slammed his hand against the rusted airlock controls, his chest heaving. To his surprise, the hatch cracked open with a groan, the ship's systems recognizing his outdated captain's override. Emergency lights sputtered on as he pushed his way through the creaking doors. Marcus raced down the dim corridors, the thud of his boots echoing in the emptiness. The bridge doors slid aside, and he rushed to the command console, his fingers flying over the dusty controls, initiating the power-up sequence. The console flickered, then glowed. Marcus held his breath, hoping the reactor still had some juice. A flash of light made him jump. A holographic avatar shimmered into view. A woman in a crisp uniform, auburn hair pulled back in a neat bun. She snapped a salute. ESS Retribution I, Aurora, reporting for duty, Captain Stevens. Aurora, I thought you were merely offline. Sir, it's good to see you again. The eyes narrowed. I'm detecting multiple hostile life forms. Status of the crew, just me. Listen, we've got a situation. Aurora's face fell as Marcus briefed her. I'm sorry, Captain, but the weapon systems are completely dead. However, sensors and comms are still online. I can scan for the hostages and tap into enemy frequencies. Do it. We're on the clock here. As Aurora worked, a vid screen blinked on, Karr's scared visage filling the display. Time grows short, Earthers, the warlord growled. Meet my demands in 1 hour, or the hostages start dying. Marcus slammed a fist on the console. The doors to the bridge hissed open. He whirled to see Speaker, wide-eyed and breathless. The denobulan gaped at Aurora's glowing form. How did you reactivate the ship? This technology shouldn't even be compatible after all these years. Marcus waved a dismissive hand. Speaker, I need your help. You know this museum better than anyone. Why should I assist you? Speaker sputtered. I don't know your kind anything. Because if we don't do something, innocent people are going to die. Damn it. Speaker, I need you. Speaker looked from Marcus to the screen showing Karr's snarling face. His shoulders slumped. Very well, human. I will help you for their sake. But do not think this changes anything between our people. Marcus nodded curtly, not having time to argue. He turned back to Aurora's expectant face. All right, let's figure out our options. Speaker, pull up a schematic of the museum. We've got hostages to save. As Marcus and Speaker pored over the museum schematics, Aurora's AI voice cut through the tense silence. Captain, sensors have detected an unidentified vessel docked in the museum's sublevel hangar. Its configuration matches known denobulan designs. This could be the Extremist's escape route. Marcus straightened, a plan forming. He pulled up the retribution systems on the flickering screen. What about our tractor beam? If we can lock onto their ship, we might be able to trap them here. Speaker scoffed, his long fingers dancing over the console. You must be joking. That ancient beam couldn't possibly penetrate modern denobulan shielding. It's a futile endeavor. Marcus rounded on the curator, his patience wearing thin. I don't see you offering any bright ideas. Unless you've got a better plan, this is our best shot at stopping these bastards. Speaker opened his mouth to argue, but a sharp look from Marcus silenced him. The captain's fingers flew across the controls, diverting power to the tractor beam. The retribution groaned as the system came online, the deck plates shuddering beneath their feet. On the view screen, a shimmering blue beam glanced out from the retribution's hull, enveloping the sleek denobulan ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, impossibly, the enemy vessel shuddered and stilled, caught in the beam's grasp. Speaker gaped at the screen, his eyes wide. I can't believe it. How could such outdated technology possibly? Looks like you're about to get a crash course in human combat tactics. Stay down and don't do anything stupid. The bridge doors hissed open, revealing a squad of snarling denobulan extremists led by a scared warrior. Vosak, Karr's second in command. Surrender, human filth. Vosak spat, leveling his disruptor rifle at Marcus. You're outnumbered and outmatched. Marcus dove behind the command chair as a barrage of disruptor fire tore through the bridge. He returned fire, dropping two extremists with well-placed shots. Beside him, Speaker crouched low, his hands shaking on his weapon. Aurora, activate the bridge's defensive systems. Marcus shouted over the chaos. A hum filled the air as the Retribution's automated turrets sprang to life, peppering the extremists with deadly precision. Vosak roared in fury, blasting one of the turrets to slag. Speaker flinched as a disruptor bolt sizzled past his head. He looked to Marcus, conflict etched on his angular features. These were his people, even if they were misguided. Could he really fight against them? Another turret exploded, showering the bridge in sparks. The extremists pressed forward, their numbers dwindling but their resolve unshaken. Marcus gritted his teeth, knowing they couldn't hold out much longer. Speaker made a decision. He rose from cover, firing his sidearm at the advancing denobulans. His shots went wide, but the distraction was enough. Marcus seized the opening, cutting down the remaining extremists with a barrage of pulse fire. Vosak, the last one standing, fixed Speaker with a venomous glare. Traitor, he hissed. You side with these primates against your own kind. I side with peace, Speaker replied, his voice steady. I will not let your hatred and violence define our future. Vosak lunged, a wicked blade flashing in his hand. Marcus moved, throwing himself between the denobulan and Speaker. The knife plunged into Marcus's shoulder, drawing a grunt of pain. He grabbed Vosak's wrist, twisting until the bone snapped. The denobulan howled, crumpling to the deck. Marcus stood over him, blood seeping through his uniform. "It's over. Call off your men and release the hostages." Vosek spat at Marcus's feet. "You're too late, human. Karr has already begun the executions. Your interference has sealed their fate." He turned to Speaker, his eyes hard. "The teleporter. Can you get it working?" Speaker blinked, taken aback. "The teleporter? Marcus, that system was unreliable even in its prime. The risk off." "I don't care about the damn risk," Marcus snapped. "Innocent lives are at stake. We're out of options." Speaker hesitated, then nodded grimly. "I'll do what I can." As the Denobulan worked frantically to bring the ancient teleporter online, Marcus gripped his rifle tightly, ignoring the pain lancing through his shoulder. "The rescue mission. Hang on," he whispered, praying they weren't too late. "We're coming for you." As Speaker frantically calibrated the teleporter, Marcus gripped his rifle, blood dripping from his knife wound. The retribution systems hummed, straining to power the ancient device. Marcus stepped onto the pad, his jaw set. Speaker joined him, hands shaking. "Initiating teleportation," Aurora announced. "Brace yourselves." A blinding light engulfed them. Marcus's stomach lurched as his molecules dissolved, hurtling through space. An instant later, he stumbled as his boots hit solid ground. Speaker crashed into him, disoriented. Screams filled their ears. They'd materialized in the center of the hostage room. Karr gaped at them, his scared face twisted in shock. "Kill them," he roared. Disruptor fire erupted from all sides. Marcus shoved Speaker down, rolling them behind a metal display case. Bolts sizzled overhead, showering them with sparks. The hostages, seeing Marcus, began shouting and thrashing against their bonds. "Help us, please." The guards turned, distracted. Marcus lunged, tackling the nearest Denobulan. They grappled, Marcus slamming the guard's head against the floor. He wrenched the plasma rifle from the limp fingers, firing point-blank into the guard's chest. Speaker rose, snatching up a fallen disruptor. He laid down covering fire, driving the guards back. "Get the hostages." Marcus sprinted for the captives, blasting through their restraints. "Go. Run for the exit." As the hostages fled, a dark laugh cut through the chaos. Karr stepped forward, a vicious curved blade in hand. "Marcus Stevens, I've waited a long time for this." "Karr." Marcus spat, raising his rifle. "Your reign of terror ends now." They charged, colliding in a brutal clash. Marcus parried Karr's slashing blade, slamming his rifle butt into the warlord's face. Karr reeled back, spitting blood. Karr's grin was pure malice. "Oh yes, I was there on Arcturus Prime. Your brother fought valiantly. But in the end, he died screaming, impaled on my blade, like all humans will." Karr crumpled, his face a ruined mess. Marcus grabbed him by the throat, hauling him up. He pulled his sidearm, pressing the barrel to Karr's head. "Do it," Karr gurgled, blood bubbling from his lips. "Avenge your dear brother. Show everyone the savagery that lurks in human hearts." "Marcus," Speaker shouted, pulling a dazed hostage to her feet. "Reinforcements are coming. We have to go now." He lowered the gun, breathing hard. "No, you don't get off that easy." He grabbed a set of restraints, snapping them around Karr's wrists. "You're going to stand trial for your crimes. Justice will be served." Karr spat, struggling weakly. "Fool, you think your pathetic human laws mean anything. I'll never answer to your courts." Suddenly, Karr stiffened, his eyes rolling back. His body convulsed, limbs thrashing. Marcus stumbled back as the warlord rose, his movements jerky and unnatural. "Did you really think I would allow myself to be taken?" Karr's voice was a metallic rasp, his eyes glowing an eerie red. "Witness the true power of Denobulan superiority." Karr moved faster than any living being should. His fist caught Marcus in the chest, sending him flying. He crashed into the wall, his rifle clattering away. The warlord loomed over him, a twisted grin stretching his face. His skin rippled, metallic veins pulsing beneath the surface. Cybernetic augmentation, human. Your crude biology is no match for our machine-melded might. Karr grabbed Marcus by the throat, hoisting him up. The warlord's fingers squeezed, cutting off Marcus's air. Black spots danced in his vision. Pathetic, Karr sneered. You could have ended this cleanly. Now I will take great pleasure in crushing the life from you as your precious hostages watch. As Marcus choked and kicked, his comm crackled. ND weapons online. Aurora's voice cut through the static. Retribution at full power. Through his darkening vision, Marcus saw a flash of light. A blazing beam of blue-white energy pierced the museum wall, vaporizing metal and stone. It struck Karr square in the back, burning through his armor like paper. The warlord screamed, a hideous electronic shriek. His grip spasmed, dropping Marcus to the floor. Smoke poured from the ragged hole in Karr's torso, the stench of burning meat and melted circuitry choking the air. Karr staggered, his augmented body trying desperately to repair itself. He turned hollow, hate-filled eyes on Marcus. This isn't over. Another lance of plasma slammed into him, hurling his ruined body across the room. He hit the wall and crumpled, twitching feebly as flames consumed him. Marcus pulled himself up, coughing harshly. Speaker ran to him, pulling his arm over his thin shoulders. Together, they limped toward the smoldering hole the Retribution's weapons had carved. In the distance, Marcus could hear the whine of approaching denobulan ships. Karr's reinforcements, too late to save their leader. Aurora, he rasped into his comm. Lock onto our position. Get us out of here. As the teleporter beam took them, Marcus looked back at the burning ruin of Karr. The warlord's reign of terror was over, but Marcus knew, deep in his bones, that the scars of this day would linger. The battle was won, but the war was just beginning. The aftermath. Marcus's comm crackled, Aurora's voice cutting through the chaos. Captain, the Retribution's EMP cannon might still be operational. It was designed to disable enemy ships, but it could also neutralize Karr's cybernetics. Marcus's eyes widened, a desperate plan forming in his mind. Aurora, divert all power to the EMP cannon. Everything we've got left. Speaker whirled on Marcus, his face twisted in disbelief. Are you insane? An EMP blast will knock out the museum's life support systems. The hostages will be at risk. Do it, Speaker said, his voice strained. I'll get the hostages to safety. Just end this. Marcus nodded, activating his comm. Aurora, fire the EMP cannon. Full power, now. The Retribution shuddered, its hull creaking as power surged through long-dormant systems. A high-pitched whine filled the air, building to a deafening crescendo. Karr snarled, raising a fist to crush Marcus's skull. Suddenly, a blinding pulse of energy burst from the Retribution, washing over the museum in a wave of crackling blue light. Karr stiffened, his eyes widening in shock. His cybernetic implants sizzled and popped, sparks shooting from his metal-infused skin. He convulsed, his grip on Marcus spasming. Marcus dropped to the floor, gasping for air. He watched as Karr twitched and jerked, the warlord's augmented body shorting out. With a final guttural cry, Karr collapsed, smoke rising from his ruined form. The EMP blast swept through the museum, shorting out the electronic restraints holding the hostages. They stumbled free, disoriented and terrified. Speaker rushed to their side, herding them together. Quickly, we must evacuate. The EMP has disabled the museum's systems. We don't have much time. As if to punctuate his words, a series of explosions rocked the building, sending debris raining down. The lights flickered and died, plunging the museum into darkness. Marcus staggered to his feet, his head ringing. Speaker, lead the way. Get these people out of here. Speaker nodded, his features grim in the dim emergency lighting. Follow me. I know this museum like the back of my hand. They set off through the crumbling corridors, Speaker navigating the twists and turns with practiced ease. Marcus brought up the rear, his pulse rifle at the ready, shielding the group from falling rubble. The ground shook with each new explosion, the very foundations of the museum groaning under the strain. Dust choked the air, the hostages coughing and stumbling in the near darkness. Marcus gripped a young Andorian woman's arm, steadying her as she tripped over a chunk of fallen masonry. "Keep moving. We're almost there." Speaker led them around a final corner, the museum's exit coming into view. Marcus's heart lifted at the sight of the battered doors, daylight streaming through the cracks. Suddenly, a massive explosion tore through the museum, the shockwave hurling them to the ground. The ceiling above them buckled, huge slabs of stone and metal plummeting toward the huddled group. Marcus leaped forward, shoving Speaker and the hostages clear. He threw himself over a cowering Tellarite child as the world came crashing down around them. The roar was deafening, the impact driving the air from Marcus's lungs. Dust filled his mouth and nose, choking him. He felt something heavy slam into his back, pain lancing through his body. As the rumbling faded, Marcus raised his head, blinking grit from his eyes. The Tellarite child stared up at him, eyes wide with fear. The escape. "It's okay," Marcus gasped, his voice hoarse from the dust and pain. "I've got you." He staggered to his feet, the child clinging to his neck. The museum's entrance was blocked, tons of debris sealing the way out. They were trapped, the museum collapsing around them. Speaker limped to Marcus's side, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. The hostages huddled behind them, their faces streaked with dust and terror. Marcus looked at Speaker, a grim understanding passing between them. They had come this far. They would not fail now, not with innocent lives on the line. Marcus activated his comm, static crackling in his ear. "Aurora, lock onto my signal. Get us out of here now." As the museum crumbled, the whine of the Retribution's teleporter filled the air. Marcus held the child tight, Speaker's hand gripping his shoulder. They disappeared in a flash of blinding light, the roar of falling stone chasing them into oblivion. They materialized in the Retribution's teleportation chamber, stumbling as their feet hit solid ground. The child whimpered, clutching Marcus's neck. He gently set the child down, his own legs shaking from the strain and relief. The hostages looked around, bewildered but safe. Aurora's voice filled the chamber. "Captain, I've detected multiple denobulan ships approaching. We need to get out of here." "Understood," Marcus replied, turning to Speaker. "Let's get to the bridge." They hurried through the corridors, the hostages following close behind. Marcus's mind raced. They had managed to escape the museum. But now they had to outrun the denobulan reinforcements. The Retribution was an old ship, its systems barely functional. They were running on borrowed time. On the bridge, Marcus and Speaker worked frantically to assess the damage. Aurora's avatar flickered, her expression grim. "Captain, the EMP has knocked out our weapons and propulsion systems, but the ship's structural integrity is holding, and life support is stable." Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Good work, Aurora. We're not out of the woods yet, though. See if you can repair the long-range comms array. We need to send a distress call to Earth Alliance." "Understood, Captain. I'll get started right away." As Aurora set to work, Marcus turned to the hostages, many of whom were nursing injuries. He grabbed a medkit from the wall and knelt beside a groaning Bolian, his blue skin mottled with bruises. Speaker joined him, his long fingers deftly applying a dermal regenerator to a human's lacerated arm. They worked in silence, using their combined knowledge of xenobiology to triage the wounded. As they finished up, Speaker spoke softly. "I never thought I'd find myself working alongside a human like this." Marcus glanced at him, surprised. "I know what you mean. Growing up, all I ever heard about denobulans was how cold and ruthless you were." Speaker chuckled ruefully. "And we were taught that humans were reckless, primitive brutes. It seems we were both wrong." Marcus nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. Guess so. Funny how it takes a crisis to make you see past the stereotypes. Speaker's expression turned thoughtful. My grandfather used to tell me stories of Dinobula before the war, how our people used to value knowledge and exploration above all else. I always dreamed of returning to those ideals someday. Marcus's eyes took on a faraway look. My family has a long history of military service. I grew up believing that the only way to keep Earth safe was to fight. But now I'm starting to wonder if there might be another path, one that doesn't end in more bloodshed. Speaker opened his mouth to reply, but a sudden alarm from the comm station cut him off. Aurora's avatar reappeared, her face tight with concern. Captain, I'm detecting an incoming transmission from Karr's ship. It seems they managed to break free of the tractor beam during the chaos.